As we mentioned, today marks 1 year since Hamas launched an unprecedented attack on Israel. The surprise assault involved explosives, missiles, and a ground attack resulting in thousands of Israeli citizens killed and injured, along with other atrocities. Israel's response has resulted in tens of thousands of Palestinian deaths and injuries in Gaza and an increasing bombardment of Hezbollah positions in Lebanon as the war threatens to expand across the Middle East. Earlier today, we spoke with Evelyn Farkas. She's the executive director of the McCain Institute. Evelyn Farkas, thank you so much for joining us on Arizona Horizon. It's good to have you here. How did you first hear of the October 7th attacks, and what were your first thoughts?
Well, first, thank you, Ted, for having me here. It's an honor. Second, I don't remember exactly, but obviously for me, it must have been on television, on cable TV. I'm somewhat of a junkie, as you know, somebody who runs the McCain Institute should be, because like Senator McCain, we are actively involved in educating Americans and pushing policymakers on policy related to international affairs. So I saw it on the television, and frankly, it was shocking. Just the fact that this Israeli government, which has prided itself so much on having a military qualitative advantage against all of its opponents in the region, whether they're states or terrorist organizations, was essentially taken by surprise. And the attack on innocent men, women, and children in their homes was also something that I don't think any of us really had been able to imagine.
Did you foresee an all-out war? Did you, A, and B, did you foresee what we're seeing right now?
Well, I think everyone watching this understood right from the beginning that it could become wider because let's not forget that the main bad actor behind all of this is Iran. And Iran has several proxy groups. So the proxy group which launched the attack out of Gaza is the Hamas group. But right away, Hezbollah, which operates out of Lebanon into northern Israel with its missiles right now, basically said, we're coming out of solidarity. We are going to break the ceasefire that they had that was more or less holding with Israel. And we are going to also attack Israel with missiles. So right away, you could see the opportunity for a widening war. And then the Houthis, which is a third group in Yemen that the Iranians are also supporting, they started launching attacks against shipping in the Red Sea. So, and not frankly just Israeli shipping. So they were also, but they were also saying they were doing it out of solidarity. So there were ingredients there for a wider war that right from the beginning our government wanted to stop.
Well, but with that in mind, the purpose of the attack, I've heard and we've heard speculation that the problem was Iran was seeing Israel and Saudi Arabia getting a little too friendly and wanted to do something to disrupt things. Does that make sense to you?
It does make sense to me, Ted. The Iranians were watching a process that began, I'm not sure if it began under President Obama, but certainly under President Trump, and then continued under President Biden, a process of creating reconciliation between Israel and its various powerful Arab allies. So we had already, under President Carter, of course, created the conditions for peace between Israel and Egypt and Jordan. But beyond that, the other states in the region were hostile. Iran was suddenly realizing it might be, facing a coalition of states, including Israel, the only nuclear state and the strongest military state in the region, with its number one enemy in the region, which is Saudi Arabia. So Iran saw that in the context of its rivalry with Saudi Arabia and also its desire to see Israel continue to be, off to the side and isolated diplomatically and otherwise, that it was going to face a situation that was the opposite, that Israel would be integrated and not only integrated, but actually working together with Saudi Arabia.
Well, and with that in mind, if Hamas wanted peace right now, would Iran allow that to happen? I mean, are those two so symbiotic that they're one, or, I mean, are things starting to slip on that side?
I don't think that Iran ever 100% controlled either Hamas or Hezbollah. It's unclear whether Iran knew exactly when Hamas was going to launch this operation. They had to have known about it, though. And by the way, that also makes me think that other powers allied with Iran, like Russia, would have known about this operation potentially. In any event, I don't think that Iran controls, again, how it ends. So once it's launched, now that we're in the situation we're in, Hamas seems to be calling the shots about whether it comes to an end. But frankly, Iran wants Israel to be fighting Hamas and Hezbollah because Iran doesn't want to get in a direct war with Israel, but it wants to see Israel weakened and, of course, distracted.
How does this end? I mean, Israel says it wants to destroy Hamas. That doesn't seem like that's entirely possible. It seems like it would bubble up somewhere, some way, somehow. And obviously, Hamas wants Israel to do all sorts of things that Israel simply isn't going to. How is this going to end?
Right. I mean, Hamas wants to control Gaza. Hamas wants an independent Palestinian state. This current Israeli government, unfortunately, is more in favor of a one-state solution, which would mean keeping the Palestinians in enclaves like Gaza, which is quite dangerous. The U.S. government, the international community, the United Nations has signed up to a two-state solution, which means the Palestinians would get a state. So Hamas is fighting for that, but Hamas is also fighting for its life. Now, the Israeli defense minister said in September that Hamas was no longer an organized military force capable of threatening Israel's existence. So Hamas is significantly degraded. And as you said, Ted, you can't eliminate a terrorist group overnight, and always new fighters will come to the fore. So you have to be ready to step in with a replacement security force and with a political solution. And we don't see Israel offering that. We don't see any major diplomatic movement in that direction, unfortunately. And of course, we know Hezbollah has said we will continue fighting as long as there is no resolution in Gaza. Okay,
what would constitute a resolution in Gaza? Because you can't just, you're just pounding that place relentlessly, and there doesn't seem to be any give.
Right. So there's an intermediate step, which everyone agrees would be the most desirable thing, which is a ceasefire and a hostage swap. So some of the Palestinian prisoners that the Israelis have would be exchanged for the Israeli citizens who were seized out of their homes a year ago, as well as some others, perhaps that they're holding Israeli military that they also took on the border. So there should be a prisoner swap. The Israeli people, the majority want this as the top priority for the government before even the complete destruction of Hamas. And of course, we want that. We have about 4 Americans who are still being held by the Hamas fighters. So that would be an intermediate step. The final solution really has to be moving towards this back to the two-state solution, which is, again, what I said the international community is agreed upon because it provides the Palestinians with a sovereign state. And if I could say one thing, Ted, I was in Israel last July or end of June. And what I heard from both Jews who had been in kibbutzes that were attacked by the Hamas fighters and from Palestinians living in Israel was that we need security. And in order to have security, we each need our separate sovereign state. They didn't say we're going to hold hands and be friends forever, but they understood that the solution for security is for the Palestinians also to have their own state.
And last question, Evelyn, thank you so much for joining us. It's a great conversation. For those who say, Hamas started the war, Hamas began the atrocities, they have no business demanding a ceasefire, demanding hostage swap, that war is hell for a reason. This is why you don't start wars. It's because it's a mess out there. How do you respond to folks who say that?
Well, the problem is that Hamas has put the innocent Palestinian people right in the crosshairs. They're hiding amongst them and they're exploiting the civilians. The majority of the people who have died in Gaza are women and children. It was already a young population, so that was a foregone conclusion when Hamas started the war, that Israel would launch attack back to defend itself. So I think that unfortunately we need to put an end to the fighting as fast as possible, understanding that Israel has already destroyed the Hamas as an organized fighting force. Of course, they want to eliminate the leadership. That may not be possible, but on the other side of it is that you will be saving lives, including the lives of Israelis who are being held by Hamas.
Evelyn Farkas, Executive Director, McCain Institute. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ted. My pleasure.